Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Bhajana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jai Mr. Bhad Paramahamsa Parajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Parajikacharya Ashtottara Shri Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavinda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. Okay. Pretty sure it's 26. Tapas, you there?
It is 26.
26, okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 30th day of November 2021 in San Diego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. And we are in chapter 18, conclusion, the perfection of renunciation, text 26 on page 677. Mukta Sango Anahambadi Drityutsaha Samanvitaha Siddhya Siddhyor Nirvikaraha Karta Satvika Uchyate Mukta Sango Nahambadi Drityutsaha Samanvitaha Siddhya Siddhyor Nirvikara Karta Satvika Uchyate Mukta Sango Nahambadi Drityutsaha Samanvitaha Siddhya Siddhyor Nirvikara Karta Satvika Uchyate Mukta Sango Nahambadi Drityutsaha Samanvitaha Siddhya siddhyo nirvikara. Karta sattvika uchyate. Good. Mukta sango naham vadi. Dhrityutsaha samanvitaha. Siddhya siddhyo nirvikara. Karta sattvika uchyate. Mukta sango naham vadi. Dhrityutsaha samanvitaha. Siddhya siddhyo nirvikara. Karta sattvika uchyate. Mukta sango naham vadi. Dhrityutsaha samanvitaha. Siddhya siddhyo nirvikara. Karta sattvika uchyate. Anyone else here? No? Go ahead. You can do it. Mukta sango naham vadi. Dhrityutsaha samanvitaha. Siddhya siddhyo nirvikara. Karta sattvika uchyate. Zoomland.
Mukta sango hanam vadi.
Mukta sango naham vadi.
Dhrityutsaha samanvitaha.
Dhrityutsaha samanvitaha.
Siddhya siddhyo nirvikaraha.
Siddhya siddhyo nirvikara.
Karta sattvika uchyate.
Karta sattvika uchyate. Okay. Mukta Sangha, liberated from all material association. Anaham Vadi, without false ego. Dhriti, with determination. Utsaha, and great enthusiasm. Samanvitaha, qualified. Siddhi, in perfection. Asiddhyoho, and failure. Nirvikaraha, without change. Karta, worker. Sattvikaha, in the mode of goodness. Uchyate, is said to be. Translation. One who performs his duty without association with the modes of material nature, without false ego, with great determination and enthusiasm, and without wavering in success or failure, is said to be a worker in the mode of goodness. A person in Krishna consciousness is always transcendental to the material modes of nature. He has no expectations for the result of the work entrusted to him, because he is above false ego and pride. Still, he is always enthusiastic till the completion of such work. He does not worry about the distress undertaken. He is always enthusiastic. He does not care for success or failure. He is equal in both distress and happiness. Such a worker is situated in the mode of goodness. Okay. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmilitam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkest of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. Hare Krishna. So Krishna is discussing different kinds of knowledge and different kinds of workers. And let's see, with knowledge we had, and action, and now the worker, the karta. So Srila Prabhupada is describing, it says the mode of goodness, he's describing really the beyond the mode of goodness, pure goodness, Krishna consciousness. And this, you may recall, way back at the beginning of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna was encouraging Arjuna to fight for the sake of fighting, to not be attached to success or failure, be equipoised. That word equipoised came in quite a bit. And this is this position is possible when one is doing everything simply on the order of the superior for the sake of pleasing them. And the effort itself is a success. This is the difference. Prabhupada would often point out that in material affairs, if you don't complete the task and succeed, then the whole thing is a failure. I often think of building the Brooklyn Bridge. Now, I didn't see the building of the Brooklyn Bridge, but I grew up in that area in New York, and I read about what a great endeavor it was, and it was a marvel of engineering at the time, and all of these different things. But can you imagine if they said, well, it's too hard, we can't do it, and you have half a bridge. The whole thing is useless. You see what I'm saying? On the material plane, you have to actually complete it, and then you get some fruit. But in the ultimate issue, it's still a failure. Because no matter what you achieve on the material plane, in terms of your own false ego, your own body, eventually it leaves you or you leave it. What is the success if you build this and you accumulate this wealth, you get this fame, all these different things, but then eventually you leave the body stays here, and you go on to your next engagement. It may not even be a human life. What did you actually gain? Hold on a second. So this is called Shama Eva Hi Kevalam. It's a phrase that's become famous. It's in the second chapter of the first canto. There it says that Dharmak Svanustitok Pungsam Vishakshena Katasayak Notpadi Yedidatim Shama Eva Hi Kevalam. All right, now we have Haribol, the door is open. You have to try to shut it. Ask him to be quiet. When any of these doors are open, it comes right on you. The illusion is that this little curtain is going to stop the sound, but it's one big room. Hare Krishna. So what that verse says, Dharmak Svanastitak Pungsam, that you may carry out your duties in Varnashram Dharma very nicely. But if your attraction to hear about and chant about Krishna, Vishvakshena, is not aroused by your work, in other words, if it's not in relation to God for His service, and it's simply materialistic, then it's all simply an endeavor for nothing ultimately. Wasn't that a play in Shakespeare? It's a tale told by an idiot, signifying nothing. We strut and fret our days upon the world, and then I don't know if you ever studied Shakespeare, but he had that insight. I think it's Macbeth, and in the end, we all die. So what's the use, But of course, he didn't take it much beyond that. That's the problem, because it's easy enough to see. I remember in the 60s when I grew up, the existentialist philosophy was very prominent. It became very prominent with the French. Jean-Paul Sartre after the war. World War II was such a disaster. So many people died, this philosophy grew out of the futility of all human endeavor, But that's because they have no good instruction about how to use one's human life for actual advancement toward the goal of life. To realize our eternal nature and our relationship with Krishna, with God, and to live in that relationship. And then human life has meaning. Yes, the devotees eventually leave their body, that's true, but they don't lose whatever they've gained in this life in terms of devotional service. They go on next, if they need to complete the course, and eventually become returned to the spiritual world, where everything is eternal. It's not Shama Eva Hi Kevalam. It's all very purposeful and meaningful and successful. So here we see in this verse, Mukta Sango Nahambadi. So this is the state of someone who's really in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada is explaining in the purport here. Mode of goodness, pure goodness. First thing is Mukta Sangha, free of attachment. This word Sangha is a repeated theme throughout. Sangha meaning, again, to reiterate, did you want to ask a question before? Do you have something? Can you wait till we just finish this verse? Okay. So Sangha means association, and Sangha means attachment. And you can see how one grows from the other. What you associate with, you become attached to. Now, when I was a kid, I was 15 years old, and I had absolutely no inkling of this philosophy or anything. a complete atheistic upbringing. And like so many of my contemporaries, I felt that it was proper and good for me to start smoking cigarettes when I was 15. Everyone was doing it. All the movie stars were doing it. You know, it was advertised. And for me to be a social success, I had to learn to smoke cigarettes. So I remember I was out in the park, you know, smoking, coughing. Really? You know, and yeah, I have to go through it, you know. And after a while, I would smoke. I never smoked more than a pack a day. I think I smoked quite a little less than that. And the amazing thing is, I don't remember any great struggle in giving it up. I did smoke for some years until I started practicing yoga, hatha yoga, and became a vegetarian. And then it just, you know, it just wasn't part of the program, and I wasn't in the same. And so it just fell away. But I know that devotees have had difficulty, you know, and Prabhupada knew that. There's a pastime. You'll laugh at this one. Shama Sundar, you know, there's these famous devotees at the beginning of the movement were key to Prabhupada's, spreading the movement quickly on the West Coast, especially then in England. And Shama Sundar was one of them. He and his wife Malati, Mukunda and Janaki, and Yamuna and Guru Das were the three couples who went to the UK and actually pioneered the movement there. But this was on the West Coast, earlier than that, even 67. And he was one of the first devotees in the first temple there in the middle of the hippie area, Haight-Ashbury district in San Francisco. And so, great story. How did the first deities come about in ISKCON? So, at that time, historically, there was a real interaction with the yoga and the East. Ravi Shankar became popular, musician. And that's how I was first introduced, you know, the music, because I was a musician. And and then with the psychedelics, you know, and the Beatles and things, and then so there was a lot of Eastern stuff going on. And so Malati went into one of the stores, and there was a big barrel. And in the barrel, it was filled with little miniature murtis, and they were Jagannath deities. Jagannath, Baladev, Subhadra. I think they were all mixed together in there, you know. So she stole one. Because this is India. Let me see what Prabhupada says. So she brought it back and she put it down on the table there, and she asked Prabhupada, who is this? What is this? You know, I think it was Jagannath. And Prabhupada offered us a basin and says, "Wow, what is this? You know." He's offering a basin to this little figurine, you know. And he began to explain, are there any more? He said, "I'll go back and look." And I don't know if she stole them or paid $2, whatever. But she found the other two, and there was a three. There was Jagannath. So Prabhupada said, he said, okay, so we can, so he asked Shama, said, can you make big ones of these? Carve, because he was good with wood. He was a wood carver. He said, sure. So they got a little space for him in a loft somewhere, and he's, you know. And Prabhupada would sometimes go there and see how the carving was going. So he comes in one day, and then I think one of the deities was done, and he was smoking a cigarette, and he was resting the cigarette on the head of one of the deities, and, you know, the carving. So Prabhupada didn't like blow up at him, you know, because he knew how difficult it was to quit from his, you know, not that he smoked, but he knew in India and people, he would always call them beaties, you know, the beaties. I tried the beaties one time in Central Park, I remember smoking. Is it actually tobacco or something else? Anyway, whatever it is. Oh, Lord. So anyway, he told them, I know how difficult it is to try to reduce one a day, you know, gradually, and you do it that way. And of course, he was able to eventually do that. I seem to have a difficulty. But the point is that it's just what happens by living in the material world. You become addicted to things. We went through this already, I think, in one, maybe it was the morning class, evening class. But these attachments, sangha, when they become very strong attachments, they're called prasanga. Prasanga means this pra prefix increases, it intensifies, right? So we're filled, our minds, our hearts are filled with all of these strong attachments, headed by sex life, but millions of others also. And that's what it means to be a conditioned soul. So Krishna consciousness means to be free of these, to gradually become free of these, sublimate them. I like that word, sublimate. It means like transfer the attachment to Krishna. So here, this mode of goodness, he's not exactly describing in the verse attachment to Krishna. Mukta Sangha means free of material attachment to the fruits of your labor. What happens to the fruits? You give it to Krishna. That's what it means to be free of attachment. Not that you become attachment less, but that your attachment is gradually transferred to Krishna. There's a wonderful verse. This is called real vairagya. Because vairagya means no raga, right? But in Krishna consciousness, vairagya really means no raga for matter, but lots of raga for Krishna. I was just reading in the Chaitanya Charitamrita about ragatmika bhakti. You know the phrase, ragatmika. Spontaneous attraction to Krishna. You read the Krishna book, especially Vrindavan Leela. You read all about the gopis and the cows and the cowherd boys and Krishna's parents. They're all spontaneously attracted to Krishna. So they're full of raga. But this is healthy raga. This is good raga. This is not material raga, which tells you, keeps you bound up to this world of birth and death. So here, mukta sangha, and then free of false ego, that I am the doer of everything, I'm the controller, and therefore I'm the enjoyer. No, I have an ego, but it's not the false ego. I am a servant of Krishna. That's the real ego. That's our real nature. So anaham body means free of false ego, meaning identifying with the body or the mind like that. And then, but you would think that, okay, well, then, what impetus do I have to work? But now it's a dritti utsaha samanvita, filled with determination, dritti, and great enthusiasm. I was just reading, every month they put out a World Sankirtan newsletter. San Diego was ninth in the world. Ninth in the world last month. Which was unheard of just a few months ago, or like a year ago. But anyway, it also has individual scores. And number one, certainly in America, I think in the world, no, number one was Parameshwar. He's also an American. He's distributing in a place called Ypsilanti, in Minnesota, I think. But right behind him, nearby, was this devotee named Maha Utsaha, Mahotsaha. Means great enthusiasm. He's a disciple of Bhakti Vikas Swami. Yeah, he's a disciple. And he did like $7,000 in one day. It was just unreal. It's just unheard of. Or whatever. I mean, and so the point is he's very enthusiastic to distribute books. But he's not enjoying the fruit. The Lakshmi goes to the temple and the BBT, and the books go to the people. And he's not thinking, oh my, are they going to listen? Are they going to glorify me today? No, he's not thinking like that. He's thinking, this is, I'm doing this for the pleasure of Krishna, for my spiritual master, for the benefit of the people, and Lord Chaitanya, and experiencing the pleasure of the beloved of the Lord's is the essence of bhakti. That is what bhakti rasa means, is where you're enjoying the pleasure of the person who you're serving. And what do we have in this world that's closest to it? You can't get away from it. The mother's love for a child. The child is completely selfless. The child, 3 days old or whatever, doesn't even know this is a person there. It's just this wonderful warmth and this love, this feeling, and the nourishment, and life is good, And the mothers, the child is comfortable, is healthy, and he's smiling there with that little toothless smile. That's all I want, right? So and you read about this. There's a chapter in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 4 of the Adi Leela. I'll give you a blessing. If there's anything wrong with it, it goes on me. You can, if you really want to understand what this selfless love is, then you read that chapter, the 4th chapter of the Adi Leela. Skip to it. And what it does is it explains the love of the gopis for Krishna. That is the ideal. That Lord Chaitanya said that's the greatest example of this selfless love. And how they dressed themselves beautifully just for his pleasure. They went out just for his, in the middle of the night, just because he called them and he wanted to enjoy, and it's all for his pleasure. And Radharani is the ultimate. And at the end of the whole Chaitanya Charitamrita, there's a chapter all about the Shikshastika. That's the essence of it. Then it also has a review of the whole book. But there's this wonderful I don't want to say soliloquy, but it's a statement by Radharani, numerous verses. Lord Chaitanya in the mood of Radharani. And he wrote this. And there's this famous line in there where she says, if Krishna wants to be with another gopi, then I'll go to that gopi and fall at her feet and take her hand and bring her to Krishna and be perfectly happy. And the leader of book distribution in the 70s, Tripurari Das Brahmachari, he wrote to Prabhupada because the Chaitanya Charita had come out, and he was reading that, and he read that, and he said, this sounds like what the attitude we're meant to have on book distribution. In other words, we're trying to bring people to Krishna, and our success and our happiness is in doing that. Not in ourselves even being personally with Krishna, but bringing others to Krishna. You see? That's the preaching mood. It's for their benefit and for Krishna's happiness, and that's enough for me. That makes me happy. And you can see how perfectly selfless it is. And Krishna's Kaviraj, he gives this definition. Atmandriya pritivancha tare prema kam, dare bali kam, Krishnandriya priti icha dare prem nam. The difference between kama and prema is the whole understanding. If you understand that, then bhakti makes complete sense. So here he says that the desire to satisfy one's own senses is kama. And that causes great suffering. It keeps us bound here, birth and death and that. But the desire to please Krishna's senses is prema. And we can see that the perfection of devotional service, as shown by the residents of Vrindavan, is that they're always simply concerned about Krishna. The gopis, their hearts are fluttering, and they're so worried that Krishna's going to, walk on it, because he walks barefoot. He always walks barefoot in Vrindavan. This is another pastime. Where his mother wanted him to be, can you please put some shoes on? He said, no. You're saying you want me to wear shoes so I won't hurt my feet. What about all these cows? If you can make shoes for these 100,000 cows, then I'm saying, okay. So the wonder is that he's always making these footprints, and they worship those footprints. Nobody will ever walk on the footprints. That's why even after he left and went to Mathura, the footprints were still there, and they would go and see the footprints. Oh, their hearts would be aflutter, in separation. So that's all of this is coming, the mukta sangha, to come to the point. So I got the real essence of vairagya is not to be free of raga, but to be free of raga for matter. So he gives this definition, Rupa Goswami does in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Anasaktasya vishayan yatarham upayunchata nirbandha krishna sambandhe yuktam vairagya muchyate. Yukta vairagya means detachment in yoga, here yoga being linking up to Krishna. So first he says, without attachment to the object of the senses, but where appropriate, using those objects in the service of Krishna, for his service. Yatarham means appropriately. Upayunjita and nirbandha. This way you stay unbound. You're not bound by your attachment to the fruits of the labor, because it's all for Krishna. Krishna sambandhe. But you get bound up to Krishna, which is what you want. You want that attachment to be diverted to Krishna. You want to be completely attached to, and the more you are, the more you're in perfection. So here's the definition given here in this little verse about a karta, the doer, the entity in the mode of goodness, without the false ego, but working with determination and enthusiasm, and being indifferent to perfection or imperfection. In other words, success or failure. On the material plane, the success is measured in terms of whether the project comes out, whether you succeed, and if you don't, then the whole effort is lost. I went here to do that, I invested this money, and now it's all lost. Oh my God, I'm a failure, right? But in Krishna consciousness, the very effort to succeed, and provided you're doing everything you can, then the fulfillment is up to Krishna. You tried your best, and that's what Arjuna eventually came to. Because materially they were going to lose the battle. Bhishma Dev and Karna and Dronacharya. I heard Prabhupada say on the tape, they were all superior fighters to Arjuna. Bhishma Dev was legendary, Dronacharya was his teacher, and Karna, he'd been born from the sun god, and I'm not going to go into his whole story, but somehow he lost his relation as a Pandava. And, but he still had these fighting, he was born with armor on. I mean, So, but because Lord Arjun was simply doing it as a service, nimitta matram bhavasabhyasacha. You become simply my agent, just like a hand. The hand is not responsible for the success or failure. It's just doing what you intend to do. And if the hand does its duty as a duty, then it's a real hand. So Arjun was just now, all of the ramifications of the war, which he had laid out in the first chapter, materially. All these men will be killed, the women will be unprotected, the world will be full of Varnasankara, unwanted children, I'll be responsible, I'll go to hell, and the Pitris won't get their Shraddha ceremony. Who needs this? And even if I win the kingdom, it'll be soaked with the blood of the people who I love. How can I enjoy that? So where's my motivation to fight? So he forgot that Krishna wanted him to fight. I mean, he didn't forget, but so he became paralyzed, and he drops his bow, sits down, disconsolate, because he was exactly not in this mode. He had been put into illusion by Krishna so the Gita could be spoken. So this is how, this is not describing Krishna, Siddhya Siddhyo Nirvikara. This is describing someone who is leaving the success or failure up to Krishna. And our duty is to try as hard to do it as nicely as we can and leave the success or failure up to Krishna. And that way, the effort itself is the success. And Prabhupada felt that way when he came to America. I mean, it was an impossible thing that he was trying to do, right? I mean, $7 in his pocket, 69 years old, not in very good health, coming to a strange land, in second language, no contacts, basically. If anyone looked at, someone, would you like to invest in this? No, thank you. There's no way he's going to get it. And then he tried, he would write to India, and he would say in the early lectures, yes, I wrote to I forget the name now, some wealthy industrialist who agreed to buy the temple, the building in Manhattan, in Midtown. Prabhupada walked by and said, this will make a nice temple. I'll write to this gentleman who I contacted in India. He said, yes, if I can just get permission to get the money out of India, because they weren't, they didn't let the money leave India, and he couldn't get it. Thank God. Can you imagine Prabhupada being stuck in New York the whole time? He would have put all his energy there. Anyway, but Prabhupada had big dreams, that it wasn't dreams, it was just plans. And eventually he succeeded in a way no one could imagine. Not with some big money backer from India, but just raising, from the ground up, from the indigenous hippies and so forth, and the money came through his books. So it was all very successful, and a perfect example of this. He was just, success or failure, he's going to try, and it was hit or miss. First he's uptown, living in a little office. He had to walk across town in order to take a bath and cook. And nothing was happening. But then they brought him downtown to the Paradox restaurant. I used to eat there. I used to eat at the Paradox restaurant. It was right around the corner from where I lived. This was after Prabhupada was already started the movement, but it was about a year later. And anyway, I don't want to get into that. But this, when you look at this verse, and you can see that this describes Prabhupada's success, and that he was free of material attachment. We have a special guest. He's one of our famous crickets. He looks pretty pacified. All right, let's go on. So, any questions on this verse? We can go on to the mode of passion. Ragi karma palaprepsur lubdho hangsatmako shuchihi harsha shokanvita karta rajasa padikirtitaha. Okay, the worker who is attached to work and the fruits of work, desiring to enjoy those fruits, and who is greedy, always envious, impure, and moved by joy and sorrow, is said to be in the mode of passion. Purport. A person is too much attached to a certain kind of work, or to the result because he has too much attachment for materialism, or hearth and home, wife and children. Such a person has no desire for higher elevation in life. He is simply concerned with making this world as materially comfortable as possible. He is generally very greedy, and he thinks that anything attained by him is permanent and never to be lost. Such a person is envious of others and prepared to do anything wrong for sense gratification. Therefore, such a person is unclean, and he does not care whether his earning is pure or impure. He's very happy if his work is successful and very much distressed when his work is not successful. Such is the worker in the mode of passion. So ragi, this is the famous raga, from which we want to be free, vairagya. Karma pala prepsur. The whole idea is to enjoy the fruits, to work so hard for those fruits. And if you're successful or even unsuccessful, you become greedy for those fruits. Lubda. Karma, what is that at the end of the 16th chapter? There's 3 gates leading this hell he just described. Kama, Krodha, Tata, Lobha. Tasmarita Trayang Tijait. One has to be free of these. Hingsatmaka means always envious, and hingsa means doing harm to others, and unclean. Harsha Shoka Anvita, subject to joy and sorrow. So this is the typical duality of this world, being swung to one or the other. And what mediates it is your success or failure in getting the fruits and enjoying the fruits. But the material world is such that sometimes you succeed, sometimes you fail. And if your life is simply, your consciousness is tied to that, then you can see how you're just going to be whipped around by the modes of nature. I'm thinking of we're going to read a verse in about 30 verses from now. The famous Brahma Bhuta Prasanatma Nashochiti Nakankshiti Samaksavesi Bhuteshu Madbhakti Labate Param. This Brahma Bhuta stage is beyond the modes of nature. And the first thing is, joyful. The natural joy of the soul comes out. You transcend it. Now the way to transcend it, he describes at the end of the 14th chapter. Mamchiyo vyabhicharena bhakti yogena sevite saguna samiti some brahma bhuya yakalpate, by undeviating devotional service. So the shochati and kankshati, that's what's being described here. The Brahma Bhuta stage is beyond lamentation and beyond desire, longing for something. They go together. You long for something. The longing stage is also can be lamentation. You can be longing, you can't get something. But even if you get it, then you lose it, then that's real lamentation. It's even more painful. You got it, and then you lost it. It's one thing not to actually get it, you know. Well, yeah, I didn't get it. I played the lottery. I mean, millions of people pay the lottery. You know, I've seen the degradation of the culture in America. That when I was growing up, I had a little bit of a gambling problem, just a little bit. And where I lived, they had a racetrack. It wasn't where you gallop on the back of the horses, but they had these little carts, chariots that they'd run on, you know. And I would go. I was living at home, you know, so I wasn't losing money that I needed to live. But I had my little measly paycheck. This was after I dropped out of college. I was worried about him. Now he's recovered. He's doing okay. But he knows not to hang around me because it's dangerous. He's coming to you. So I would go there, and it was, you know, I was drawn. You could see it. You know, I wasn't a real heavy-duty gambler, but I could see the addiction of it. People would come by the droves and then have their little tout sheets, you know. And there would be a big rush to the turnstiles, to, you know, the window just before the race, you know. And then it was all kankshati. Oh, my horse is ahead. Go, 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 go. And then shochati. You know, then it would come the lamentation. Oh, my horse lost. But then there's another race. You know, there's 8 races or something. Well, there's always hope for the next race. So this is material life. It swings between hope and despair, hope and despair. Kankshati, shochati. And in the end, it's all shochati. You lose your body. Oh, what's happening to me? You know, then you're in your next body. Start all over again. So that's material life, and there's nothing that can increase the greed and the lamentation more than gambling. If you're successful, I won. It's a perfect metaphor for material life. So that's what we're reading about here. Harsha shoka, jubilation, lamentation, rajasa parikirtita, and it's so many people. No one is in the pure mode of this or that. Many people are in the mode of ignorance with some passion. Some people are in the mode of goodness, but they can sink down in the mode of passion and even in the mode of ignorance. Krishna describes this in the 14th chapter. So, but if it's in the modes, even the mode of goodness, it's not good enough. There's also attachment. Even if you're nicely in the mode of goodness, you become attached to that sense of peace and general joy. It's still material. It's not really transcendental if it's just mode of goodness. And there's always some influence of the lower modes. So, as Krishna says at the beginning of the Gita in the 2nd chapter, try Gunna Vishaya Veda, even the Vedas, especially the Karmakanda section of the Vedas, are dealing with these different modes of nature. You're worshiping the Kali Puja, that's in the mode of darkness, so you can eat meat. They're offering Kali meat, goats or whatever, There's nothing transcendental about it. So Krishna says, try Gunya Vishaya Veda. Even the Vedas are in the 3 modes. Transcend these modes. Try Nistray Gunyo Bhavarjana. Be transcendental to the modes. How to do it? It's right in the Bhagavad Gita described. In the 14th chapter, as explained. So he's giving us a way of seeing the world and also seeing ourselves in terms of the knowledge, the doer, the action itself, and ultimately it all culminates in the last 15, 20 verses of the 18th chapter, which give us the conclusion, and that is Sarva Dharma Parityajya. Just give it all up, all these dharmas that the varieties of dharmas. Jnana yoga, the dhyana yoga, karma yoga, and just surrender unto me. How? Previous verse. Man mana bhavam adbhakto madhyajim namnanosko. He repeats that from the 9th chapter. Think of me, become my devotee, worship me, bow down to me, offer homage to me, and you'll certainly come to me. I promise you this, because you're my very dear friend. And that activities that awakens our sense of friendship or care for Krishna is all auspicious. It's not material. It's never lost. And we're just seeing now, this is a lesson which we should see, how the world is working. But we want to attain that state transcendental to all these modes. And then Krishna will give us nice instructions at the end here how to do that. Okay, any comments, questions on the ragi, one who is very much attached, mode of passion? All right, let's go on.
Can devotional service be also in mode of passion? Like if somebody fails to do some seva, can he become sad and that goes to mode of passion?
There are the devotional service can be tinged with the different modes. Yes, that's described by Kapila Dev. But he's very pessimistic there. You don't really get the result if you stay in that mode. You can certainly do service, and we're warned against it. Like I remember when the book distribution started, and the devotees were, their names were being announced and so many different things, and so there was a certain element of that. My name is in the Sankirtan newsletter or something like that. So there's a tinge of fruit of desire there. Now that can be purified, especially if you have good instruction. But it's also possible that can lead to offense. I mean, Vijay told this incredible story. Some of us who were in the morning class, where there was this big competition going on, who's going to be number one, Christmas marathon. And one devotee was in the two top devotees were there near each other in the airport, and one was trying to make distribute a book, and then the other devotee, who was number 2 or wanted to be number 1, he was behind the other devotee, and he was saying, "Don't buy the book." He completely lost the track. Here's this poor guy You know, it's one chance a lifetime. You can get a book and, you know, start on his way back to God. And he said, no, for the sake of my place. That's not. So that's the case in where devotional service, which is so auspicious, can be contaminated with the mode of passion. And if you're not careful, then that can lead to offenses. That's an offense. And when you offend the devotees and you offend Krishna, the spiritual master, what happens is suddenly you lose your taste for devotional service. And that you realize that taste is bestowed upon you by Krishna. He can withdraw it. You may do the same thing. You know, I'll tell you a story. I was in New Dwarka. I spent a few years there in the mid-70s working on books in the magazine, as I always did. So there's this one devotee who was, he was my authority, actually, in Back to Guided magazine. But he was having some trouble, and he made some offenses. And so I noticed, I went, because we'd all go to Mangalartik every day. I was standing right behind him, and we were relishing the beauty of Rukmini Dwarkadish, you know, so beautifully dressed and everything. But he was right in front, and I saw he could not look at the deities. He couldn't look at the deities. He was looking here, looking there, because he had done something that was, you know, offensive, and he was uncomfortable, you know. And that can definitely happen to your being comfortable and eager to be with devotees. I mean, that's such an important thing, the sadhu sangha. You know, if there's nobody sitting here and there's nobody on the Zoom, I might as well go home, right? In other words, it all depends on sangha. So if you don't feel comfortable in the devotees or in the temple for one reason or another because you committed an offense, you can see how dangerous that is. And then you're helpless. Without sadhu sangha, then the modes of nature, Maya is going to get you more. And I've seen that. So many of my god brothers, god sisters, somehow or other, you don't see them. You know, they're out there. Now, there's many reasons for that. I'm not going to get into it, but that we should be on guard for that. So yes, devotional service can be tinged with the different modes, and that's a danger sign because it means that we can slack off. The general thing is where you slack off in your sadhana. If you're not in an environment where you have peer pressure and so forth, it's easy for that to happen. So these modes can, because we've been in the mode so long, and definitely that can happen. But we should know that that's not going to help us go back to Godhead if we let the modes infect our devotional service. So we can read about it more if you want in the third canto. Kapila Dev talks about that. All right. Hi, Bo.
Hare Krishna, thank you. Nice topic. Prabhu, in this topic, this case, it's better not to announce name or something. That's better because there is a danger, you said tinge of danger of being ego or having. So it's better, or is it if other people are getting inspiration or if they join for whatever reason? So
you're talking about the book distribution scores?
Yes. Yes, sir. Yes.
Well, we kind of do that here, you know. I mean, when I was able to come every morning and read the scores, it was generally just a collective score. But there's only like 2 or 3 of them, and everyone knew that Vijay was doing about 80% of it. But yeah, there's an effort to tamp that down, that sense of individual competition. But Prabhupada was really into like competition between temples and things, because he saw that as something that, you know, can really increase the enthusiasm. But that's something that we have to be on guard, you know, against, because it's easy to become to have material pride there. I want to read one more, okay?
Thank you, Hare Krishna.
Sorry, yeah, then we can complete this karta topic and move on to the next one.
Yes.
Okay. Ayukta prakrita stabdha shato naish kritakola vishadi dirga sutricha karta tamasa uchyate. The worker who is always engaged in work against the injunctions of the scripture, who is materialistic, obstinate, cheating, and expert in insulting others, and who is lazy, always morose, and procrastinating, is said to be a worker in the mode of ignorance. Purport. In the scriptural injunctions, we find what sort of work should be performed and what sort of work should not be performed. Those who do not care for those injunctions engage in work not to be done, and such persons are generally materialistic. They work according to the modes of nature, not according to the injunctions of the Scripture. Such workers are not very gentle, and generally they are always cunning and expert in insulting others. They are very lazy. Even though they have some duty, they do not do it properly, and they put it aside to be done later on. Therefore, they appear to be morose. They procrastinate. Anything which can be done in an hour, they drag on for years. Such workers are situated in the mode of ignorance. So this is always the danger, is that you can sink down into these lower modes. And in today's society, there's no training, and it's very easy to be degraded. So we have to be on guard against that. Okay, so I think we'll get ready for this kirtan. And tomorrow, determination, detail different kinds of understanding and determination, and going through the different modes. And then we're going to come to the final coda, the end of the book, and Krishna wraps it all up with some essential instructions. Thank you very much for your attention. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.